So, Carol, listener Decca wrote in and she said that her sister saw some plants recommended by me in Gainesville, Texas at their local nursery.
Wow, Dee, are you flattered or disturbed? I didn't know you had a relationship with a local nursery in Gainesville, Texas.
I don't. And so I said, hey, ask your sister to snap a picture. And she goes, well, she couldn't figure out how to snap the picture, but she said the actual name of it is there is red dirt plants. Well, that made me giggle because red dirt plants, unlike red dirt ramblings, red dirt plants is literally 6 miles up the road from me. It's Guthrie Greenhouses, and they're one of the biggest greenhouses in this region for wholesale, and it is their retail center that is terracotta. And it's named after Tara, who is the daughter of the man who originally founded Guthrie Greenhouses. Tara's like 15 years younger than me. So there you go.
Mystery solved. Though we could probably name a few plants that you might recommend.
Oh, wait. Before we get off track with that, I'll get us started.
Okay.
Welcome to the Garden Angelist, where we talk about flowers, veggies, and all the best dirt. I am Dee Nash from Guthrie, Oklahoma, where I garden 1.5 acres out of 7.5 acres way out in the country.
And I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana. I have a suburban garden measured in square feet. It's about 1/3 of an acre.
We call ourselves Garden Angelists because we are evangelists for gardening. We love gardening and we want you to love it too.
Yes, we do. And we aren't afraid to spill the beans and tell all of our gardening secrets, the good, the bad, and even the ugly. But that's enough of who, what, when, where. Let's move on to this week's episode. Hello, Dee.
Hello, Carol. Has it been raining in your neck of the woods?
Indeed, it has. It was rainy on Tuesday, and Tuesday night we got over 3 inches of rain out of that storm.
Wow.
Dried off enough on Thursday that I could mow. And last night we got another inch of rain. But in between all that, I look back and I have gotten a startling amount of work done, Dee. A startling amount.
I'm impressed. I have not. But go ahead. I'm waiting to hear.
I weeded the raised beds in the vegetable garden cathedral. And I planted out all the tomatoes and the peppers.
Good job.
I went out shopping to one place on the west side. I met my sister and her daughter for lunch. And then my sister and I went in the rain and looked at one place, and then we went through her yard in the rain. My shoes are still drying out from that day, but I dug up some Mazus reptans, which is a little ground cover viney thing. Beautiful little blue flowers. Would love to get it to establish in my garden. She's got a huge patch of it. So anyway, and then I had to make a couple emergency trips to the greenhouse. And when I was on one of those, these 2 ladies came in and they were all wild because they still had some top crop green bean seeds. And they said they were sold out everywhere. And I'm like, my head's turning on a spivel. It's like, what's so special about these green beans? She says, oh, they're delicious. They're wonderful. So they bought.
You had to have some.
Yeah. Long story short, they are an All-America Selection winner.
Yes.
From 1950. And you know how I like me some old-timey garden vegetables.
I do.
So anyway, I started planting out some zinnias in front, and I have 2 confessions to make, Dee.
Okay.
So we're recording Friday afternoon. So when we switched our recording time, I ran down to a friend of mine that I went to high school, had a garden open today and tomorrow. So it'll be done by the time the podcast comes out. It's Janet, and she's Plants Man Jan on Instagram. And started, she's in the Hosta Society. She's in the Conifer Society. They have acreage like you do. And she started to sell some plants. So I ran down there, even though it's threatening rain, took a tour of her garden. It's glorious. She's got weeds like we do too. Bought some plants. And then last Saturday, for those who live...
Whoa, wait. What did you buy?
I bought a grass, some bee balm, because I'm all into bee balms now from last week's episode.
Oh, see what we did to you. Okay.
And then I bought 2 hostas because she had one called Party Thrills or something like that. I can't... Anyway, I bought that one. And then I bought this other one, and I should have these names down so that we could properly represent them. But it had a story behind it. She said it was one that she had seen at somebody's garden, and they said that the leaves of the hosta almost formed like a little bowl, and they had put water in the bowl and had a little goldfish swimming in it. Now, how could you
What?
not buy that hosta?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't, but yes, I can see why you would want it.
Yeah,
Hostas do well in your part of the
they
country.
do. They do. And she's got beautiful hostas.
My hostas are all, even with all the rain, they're like, we really don't love Oklahoma. We grow here, but we don't love it.
And then last Saturday, so I walked down to Sewell's Garden, which you've been to.
It's a great
And
garden.
yeah, and there,
Talk about hostas.
you want to go there, and then there's plant freaks there like me. And I thought if I walk, that'll limit what I can buy.
Yeah, it did not
So
work. You just set it aside and went and got your truck and came back, didn't you?
no, I mean, I walked home with this because you're looking at our show notes and you're like, you bought a tree?
No, actually, I didn't read You Bought a Tree. I didn't even read the show notes. I'm just listening.
So anyway,
But you did buy a tree. Where are you
no,
going to put it?
let me explain. Let me explain. So I bought a big leaf magnolia, which is Magnolia macrophylla subspecies ashii. It's the dwarf big leaf magnolia. And it's
Okay.
only found natively growing in the panhandle of Florida, but it's hardy to zone 6A. It has gigantic leaves and flowers. And I think I might go by there tomorrow because I heard it was in bloom. These flowers are
Just
like
to see it.
just twice as big as your head. They're huge.
Well, what does
So
it look like? I've never even heard of this plant. I need to
it
look it up while you're
it looks
talking about
very
it.
much like a dinosaur would come out of it from behind it.
So, is it I mean, obviously it's deciduous because you can't grow.
It's got leaves that are like a foot long.
Oh, look at those flowers. Those are pretty. Very
Yes.
exotic.
So you can see now, and they kept saying, well, I don't have a place for another tree. And they said, well, it grows vertically. It doesn't really take up a lot of room. So, so
Famous last word.
now in my defense, the thing is only a foot tall right now.
Right.
So I'm going to plant it in Plopper's Field, my perennial border, which is starting to get some
Yes.
shade. I'm going to plant it in this one section of it. And as it grows, in 5 or 6 years, I'll have to worry about it. So
Right.
that is future Carol's problem. Present Carol wanted this plant. Anyway.
By the way, I love that blog post that you wrote because I really identified with it. That's why I shared it on our gardeners. Let's see, the Garden Angeles Garden Club, which is on Facebook.
Past Carol, present Carol, and future Carol. Anyway,
Yep.
that is,
Well, you were a busy little thing.
I was and am, and I would like to hear your update.
Okay, so there's been so much rain here too. An inch and a half, an inch and a half, an inch and a half. I mean, it's been day after day. The sun is shining right now. And I worked on my paths to all of this morning because they were full of weeds. So I got out my weeder and pulled out. There's this little tufted grass that likes to grow in those paths. And let me just say, I get questions all the time because of the blog and because of Instagram where people are like, oh my gosh, what is that stuff in your paths? People, it's river rock. And river rock is the worst thing that you can have in your paths for 2 reasons. It is a perfect seed starter for every bad seed there is. And secondly, it slides because the rocks are round and I'm on a hill. So I'm constantly in the spring dragging it up the hill. And people wonder why I don't open in the spring, open the garden. This is why, because I'm spending all spring dealing with these paths. And then when it gets hot, all that stuff stops because it quits raining and it gets hot and those things can't grow in the paths. But right now it's a big old weedy mess. So the only thing good I can say about my paths are they are pretty and I got all the rock for free, which Carol already knew that because she's known me forever. And it was on a Boy Scout. It was actually on a playground at a school for children who had special needs. And
that's the very wrong thing to put on a playground. It's very wobbly to walk on.
Yeah. And so they couldn't walk on it, obviously, or push wheelchairs or anything else. So we removed all that gravel. And then Bill said, do you want to use it in your paths? I was young. I said, sure. Seemed good to me. At least I wouldn't have to weed eat them. So anyway, let's see what else. That's all of that. It's great seed starting medium though. So I'll be honest, occasionally in an area that is just, so down in the bottom, I actually sprinkle seeds of something I want. And then I pick them out and I put them in different parts of the garden.
I have two things to say.
Yes.
Speaking of weeds that kind of come up. So this little
Yeah.
weed came up in the crack in the driveway, and I looked at it and I thought, that's verbena vanity.
Of course it is.
And so I
Or
pulled it gently out of the crack in the drive, and I planted it over by the other one and said, now you grow real good right here.
yeah. I do that all the time with that verbena bonariensis. It's not vanity at mine particularly because I have all three kinds, but I pull it. It's always in those paths, so I
But
find it
it was in the
and
crack
lift
in the
it.
driveway.
I can believe that. Okay, so I planted some zinnias,
Wait a
and
minute,
I
on your
have
paths. I
what?
got one mother suggestion. Now this is probably a terrible idea. And I hesitate to say this to the wife of somebody that owns a paving company is. But don't they have like that silica sand that's supposed to like be a gluey type thing that kind of makes things stay together?
Yeah, they do. But if we do that, then they'll turn into a skating rink to go down the hill. That would be
Oh, okay.
terrible.
All
So
right. I
no,
was
we
thinking
don't want
about
to do
putting
that.
that in there with it and would kind of like be an
Like
adhesive and
concrete them in. No,
yeah,
I don't want to
terrible
do that.
idea.
And
Oh,
honestly, my paths have been in there so long that they aren't slidey anymore because there's enough dirt in them, which is why they make a great seed starting medium. All right, can I go back to my update now?
yes, because you should.
I planted some zinnia seeds and in various empty spots in the garden, and I need to go out and thin them. I pulled a lot of weeds. I mulched the cut flower garden and also put some back to nature on it so it'd have some, oomph to get those cut flowers to do their thing. I have the most beautiful stand, by the way, of common milkweed. And
Nice.
it's Asclepias syriacus, I think. That is one of the most, it is so beautiful right now and it smells like bubble gum. That stuff is, you talk about form a colony and it's in my cut flower garden. It needs to move, but I hesitate to move it because it makes
No,
me happy.
leave it.
Leave it? Okay, well, I have a big old chunk of it in one of the beds. All right. And then I went to Home Depot and I had the best time and I shared tons of stuff in my stories about different plants I liked. So everybody I know can just run up there and buy them. Home Depot's not going to know what happened to them because they had all kinds of cool stuff. One of the cool things is they had bought a ton of roses for Mother's Day, but I'm just going to say this, the Home Depot in Edmond is terribly managed. I always want to take that garden center and fix it. And they do a bad job there. They had grouped all of these. They had some of the best roses there are. Like they had some that are part of the True series, like True Love, True Passion, True. Those are Ping. I think his name is Ping Lee. He's like the one of the most famous rose hybridizers out there. They're
Huh.
just crammed in there with the knockouts, with the painter's palette, with the other. I mean, because
Oh,
there's like 5 series by Star Roses, and Home Depot doesn't care because they don't pay for their plants. It's all point of sale. But I digress. They had the knockouts on sale. No, these are not the original knockouts. These are not the red ones Dee hates. And I'm sorry, one of my clients is named Anne and she has them, but hers are double knockouts, and I like double better than single. These are the brand new ones for 2024. And one is Easy Beezy, which Easy Beezy, Beezy, replaces Easy Sunny Knockout, and it stays yellow. And it is a single
ooh,
flower.
nice.
Yeah, it's very pretty. Instead of fading to white, it stays yellow. My daughter Megan's favorite color is yellow. So she had an Easy Sunny, and I said, pull that out, and here's your Mother's Day present. Meanwhile, my
Nice.
granddaughter was standing there and on a couple of days ago, and she goes, "So where's my present?" And she puts her hands on her hips, as only a 4-year-old can do. And I
Exactly.
said, "Well, you love this. You love this knockout orange glow, which is not orange at all. It's a sherbet color. It's the prettiest shade." And she said, "I do like it." And I said, "Would you like that to be your special rose?" And she sniffed it. I'm not kidding. She sniffed it first to make sure it had scent.
Goodness gracious.
This kid is a gardener. She sniffs it and she goes, "That smells good." And I said, "Yes, would you like to take it home?" She goes, "I would. I would like to watch it grow." So they got the 2 knockouts. I just bought them because I liked them and I gave one to Megan. And then there was another series of roses there, and one of them was sensuous. spelled scent US. And that is also a very famous rose. And I snatched that baby up.
Cool.
Meanwhile, while I was standing in the roses, I sold 5 more to other people.
Of course you did.
I did because I was like, this is Painter's Palette. This series, they're multicolors. They are so easy to grow. And people were like, which ones are you buying? And yeah, I sold a bunch. So, one more thing. Do you want to hear the ugly now?
Of course.
Good. I forgot to water one day in the greenhouse this week,
Dang, burn it.
and I fried some of my eggplant plants. I did. And the funny part is I went in with Maddie and I said, oh, Gigi's got to go in there and water. I forgot to water yesterday. Well, it's been hot when it's not raining.
Right.
It's been 70s, 80s. And I walked in and they were all fried. And Maddie looked at him and she goes, Gigi, I think those plants are dead. I think you're right. Well, I watered them and actually some of them are okay. So I'm going to transplant them after we get done recording. And that reminds me, I got to run out and water again. Let's play favorites. I'm done now.
Okay, so my favorite this week is a little pea called Snowbird. These are some of the burpee seeds I bought at Menards back in the winter. It's a snow pea.
Cute.
Tiny, smaller peas than the Oregon sugar pod 2, which most people grow. Very delicious. And I don't have any pods on Oregon sugar pod yet, but this one was full of pods and I'm like, oh, pick of these. So nice little beds of them to go along with the strawberries and the lettuce. I have picked almost 15 pounds of strawberries out of my bed. How about your favorite?
I cannot believe how many strawberries you've had.
I know it's a good year for strawberries.
It is. It's just an okay here. But I don't have that many plants. Okay, so I need to go out and check my snow peas and see if they're producing pods, because if yours are, mine are too. And I had snow peas for lunch. So my favorite thing this week is that whole weedy garden. I was down there working in the paths and I was looking around, and it's time to Chelsea chop a whole bunch of stuff here, big time. But at the same time, it just is luscious and full, and I just almost can't stand it. That's all.
Very good. Question of the week.
Oh, wow. This is a good controversial question. Go for it.
Should you participate in No Mow May? The answer is no, you should not.
No, you probably shouldn't, because there's lots of really good info on it. And actually, Steve Owens locally shared a really good post about how if you do no mow May in, like, say, our state or your state, you're going to get a lot of invasive weeds.
Yep.
You're not going to get the beautiful little meadow things that you get in Britain.
And No Mow May was actually started in Great Britain.
Right.
But and this is, I'm off the top of my head now. So May 20th, American Meadows, and then our friend Kathy Gents, who's the Washington Gardener magazine, they've come up with a theme of Reduce Your Lawn Day. And the idea is make a flower bed, make a bigger flower bed, just reduce the amount of lawn that you have. And by the time this comes out, that would have been 2 days ago because it's on the 20th, but it's all over social media. But anyway, somebody said, are you going to do No Mow May? Absolutely not. Because
no.
Up the way, they're redoing an intersection. And so some people have stopped mowing this one area of their lawn, which is going to be taken over. And it's at least a foot tall and it's just horrible. And so anyway.
It doesn't work here like it does in Great Britain.
Yes.
There's a lot of good reasons why. Even my front lawn, that is my little fescue lawn, it has got a ton of common fleabane in it right now. And it's just a nightmare. It's taking over. So I'm going to have to do some work on it and pull that out and put down some more seed. So I will say this, though, and you can mow it. Dutch clover was one of the things Steve mentioned, that, you'll have Dutch clover. And I was like, well, I like Dutch clover. And I actually said that as a comment, but you can mow it and it keeps blooming. It's not like it goes away, but you don't want to let all those weeds set seed, which is what's going to happen. Correct. So No Mow May is a no for me personally.
All right. I'll do a quote and we'll start our flower topic. A lot of hard work is hidden behind nice things, and that's Ralph Lauren, the fashion designer.
Yes, a really good fashion designer who brought back Americana. That's his style. So, and he's right. If you want a nice garden, you have to work at it. So flowers. We're going to talk about gomphrena today, and gomphrena is part of it's an amaranth basically. You want to say the genus name? I mean, the family name?
The family name is Amaranthaceae.
Yes, which means amaranth. And so it's known as globe amaranth. And the amaranths are a pretty large species. I mean, it's a pretty large genus.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There's 139 species
Yeah.
native to the Americas, Western and Central Tropical Africa, Australia, Japan, and Taiwan. But here, people recognize it as globe flower. It is an annual flower.
Yeah, and there's all different sizes. Like there's little ones that are purple that they call purple buddy. And then there's big, huge, tall ones, which have become popular again because of flower farmers and florists. And those are the ones I like to grow. I don't care about purple buddy. It used to be the only thing you could get here, but now you have so many choices in amaranth, period, but in globe amaranths in particular. And you can let them reseed in your garden, and they are not thugs. Right now, I have a whole bunch that I started from seed from I wrote it down. Good. Audrey mix. And I'm growing them this year, and they're a series of pastels that I want to say run into the pinks and reds.
Probably.
And I've also grown the QIS series. There's several, they're separated out, and you can buy those from Johnny's Seed. I think the QIS series, which we did a whole thing on last year, what QIS meant and where it came from, it means quality in seed. And we actually went to our friend and asked her about it, and she went and checked on it for us. So it doesn't really mean anything. It's just, it's like a product name from a particular seed company, but it's a good one to remember.
Yeah. Yeah. And I haven't grown gomphrena or globe amaranth in quite some time. So I did look up. Burpee had a beautiful one called Fireworks. It is sold out. You could buy plants or seed. Both are sold out.
So let's talk about Fireworks for a minute. I've grown it many, many times. And Fireworks, the seeds, when you buy them, you get 5 in a package.
Wow,
I'm exaggerating,
that's not many.
but it's about 10. I'm not kidding. It is not a high seed producer. And so it's very, very hard for them to get seed. It's extremely popular because it's hot pink with little tiny yellow.
Yes.
Little tiny yellow deals. It looks great. It used to be the lady who owned Hobby Lobby with her husband used to buy tons of it because she loved it so much. And then you mentioned Truffula Pink or Truffula Pink gomphrena. I've grown that year after year after year too. Like if I have a hole in my garden, it doesn't get very tall. It gets about a foot and a half tall. I stick that in there and it does really well. It's a proven winners plant.
Yeah, they had it as the 2023 annual of the year. Proven winners did. And you grow way more gomphrena than I do. I grow it every once in a while. I see one and I know she's got some at the greenhouse, and I know after I record this, I'll have this sudden plant emergency.
You have gomphrena. Well, you know what it looks really good with? Monarda. B-ball.
So yeah, I'll be running up to the greenhouse with my hair on fire again. I got a plant emergency, and they just laugh and laugh.
And it also looks really good with Verbena bonariensis because it's a see-through plant like they are.
Mm-hmm.
And you can put it at the front of the border, you can put it at the back of the border, middle of the border. It just does really well. It's a doer. It's a good doer, as they say in Great Britain.
Oh, is that what they say? So
yes, that's what they say.
Proven Winner had some frequently asked questions, and I thought we could go through a couple of these.
Yeah, there's so many.
So do you deadhead gomphrena? And you said you never deadhead yours.
No, I do deadhead mine. They say you don't have to. I do because I want it to produce more flowers. I don't want it to go to seed. But if you're doing Truffula Pink, it doesn't go to seed anyway. So I'm sure that's why they wrote that. But if you're growing a seed variety, I deadhead it before it turns into a puffball and throws its seed everywhere.
Yeah. And I'm not sure they would self-sow in a garden here in 6B, but they might.
They do here. But you like it. I mean, it's one of those things where you're glad they self-sow.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's it good for?
Oh, well, according to Proven Winners, you can make a tea out of the leaves, which have anti-inflammatory properties, source of nutrients and antioxidants. So, but the important thing to know is because it is, you can make tea out of it. This is not a toxic plant. So it's safe if you have pets and kids around. Gomphrena is a safe plant.
Right. Like all amaranth, right?
Yes.
And does it come back every year? Well, it's an annual, but it may overwinter in a frost-free region, which is not you or I.
Nope, not by a long shot.
but it does reseed. And so that's kind of nice. And you do not want to grow it in shade. It is
It'll
a
just
prairie type plant.
leggy,
And it
leggy,
looks,
leggy.
that explains why I grow so much of it, because it looks good with all my other prairie plants. Yes, it is. Okay, so I'm sorry, I didn't ask the question. Do you think globe amaranth attracts butterflies?
I think that it probably does.
It does. So it's good.
It is good. And so now I think that I probably need at least one because I don't have any. So, like I said, I'll be going up to the greenhouse hair fire. I have a planned emergency
Buy
because I
three.
thought of something the other day when I was at the greenhouse. The only plant you'll regret is the one you didn't buy.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's not true. That's not
No,
true,
no.
because we have some plants there in our gardens that we really regret.
Yeah, but you know what? When you're the one you miss is the one you didn't buy,
I
you
get it.
know?
I get it. I mean, I
Yeah.
get your point. It just made me laugh because I was thinking, oh, I got some I regret, but okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that is globe amaranth. This gomphrena, this week's flower. Hit us with that vegetable garden quote.
It's not a quote, it's a dang poem. You ready? I'm
I
going to try
am.
to do it. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin build there of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the bee loud glade. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the vales of the morning to where the cricket sings. There midnight's all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evening full of the linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for always night and day I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore. While I stand on the roadway or on the pavements gray, I hear it in the deep heart's core. And that's by William Butler Yeats. And he was a very famous poet.
He was. And I thought I recognized this 9 bean rows. And I looked it up. Dorothy Giles, who wrote The Little Kitchen Garden.
Yes.
She quoted that poem in her book, and that's her. I think she called the chapter on beans 9 bean rows. And I wrote a
And then
post
you
about
wrote a
it.
post about
Yeah,
it.
of course I did.
That's pretty cool. So this week we decided to write about, for our vegetable topic, companion flowers for vegetables, because we haven't done that in a while, and people love, they love those. And so we thought that'd be fun.
Yeah. And so we rattled off without much thinking calendula, lavender, borage, nasturtiums, cosmos, zinnia, sunflowers. I have all but calendula in my vegetable garden. Also, I have alyssum and snapdragons that I planted way back into March that
Yeah,
are
me
just
too.
going gangbusters out there now that it's warmer and everything. So the flowers are good. They draw in the bees. They're good. They make things
They
pretty.
draw in bees and flower flies and hoverflies, and they also draw in predatory insects, which is nice too. And when I was weeding the paths today, this wasn't in the vegetable garden, I saw 2 baby assassin bugs. Luckily, I had on my gloves. This is another good reason to wear gloves. If you have assassin bugs in your garden, they do bite.
They
They don't
do.
bite unless you squish them, but it's really easy to squish them because they drop to the ground. So, and it hurts. It hurts unbelievably and swells your hand. But I wouldn't know about that by personal experience.
Yes, you would.
So I so do. Where was I going with that? Oh, drawing in predatory insects. So when all those other lovely little creatures come in to suck on nectar, some predatory insects come in for them, but some predatory insects come in for all the bad insects that are getting ready to eat all the leaves. And by the way, this year, a lot of things are being eaten in my garden.
I thought things were being eaten in my garden, and I thought that my purple broccoli that I started from seed by winter sowing,
Yeah.
it's really starting to look pretty good at the moment. So I haven't had many. I thought it was going to get eaten up, but then whatever was there is gone. And so they're really kind of
Hmm.
grown out of it. So I'm pretty pleased with it.
I bet a predatory insect ate it.
Predatory insects.
And I appreciate them. Thank you, predatory insects. I think mine will get past this stage, a lot of my stuff, but the cutworms have been fierce, the slugs, the snails, all the things that like wet stuff. Anyway, back to those companion flowers. So people ask us all the time about what flowers to plant in their vegetable garden. And you said edible is always a good idea. Yeah, because, if you can eat it, like nasturtiums, calendula, borage. Yeah, I think you can eat sunflowers. Yeah, you eat a lot of this stuff. I wouldn't eat snapdragons.
No, I wouldn't either. But the one thing I wrote in here, and you said, well, some people do. I wouldn't put castor beans, which are extremely poisonous beans. They'll kill you. I
Well,
wouldn't
don't
put
eat the
those.
beans.
Well, I wouldn't put those anywhere near my vegetable garden. But you
So
said,
people here plant
yeah,
them in the corners, the big New Zealand type that have the big purple leaves. They plant those in the corners of their vegetable garden to protect it from things like deer and other
yeah,
stuff.
I'm just
I
not
just think it's
gonna.
interesting.
It is, but I don't have any deer getting into my vegetable garden. So I guess I'm lucky and I don't have to worry about that. But
Plus, your
I,
space is not huge. So
no,
why would you put a big giant?
I
Why would
wouldn't.
you put one of those in there?
Why are
Yeah,
you asking me to?
I'm not. I don't have it in my garden either. I just said that some people do. Okay. And then also things that attract pollinators are always really a good idea. And I wouldn't plant poisonous plants unless you're absolutely sure. Although in my vegetable garden right now are sweet peas.
They're poisonous.
They are very poisonous. So, and you know what happened? I planted peas in this one area that didn't have sweet peas, but then some of my sweet peas from last year self sowed. And even though I can tell the difference between the vines and the flowers, I'm too scared to eat the peas. So it probably won't happen this year.
See, that's, yeah. So the moral of the
Yeah.
story is
Don't plant sweet peas in your vegetable garden.
always plant your sweet peas where you're not planting your eating peas or vice versa.
Well, it was supposed to be that way, but it didn't work out.
Oh,
Okay. And
gee.
then you can also plant marigolds. And I love marigolds. And I really like the big ones like Phyllis, Giant Yellow, White Swan, Hawaii, and Crackerjack. Those are all really good ones. They're
They are.
usually
And
African.
yeah, I'm not growing any of those. I'm only growing the little signet marigolds this year.
I'm
Tiny.
also growing the French marigolds because remember, I'm growing a lot of
Yes, you're
marigolds.
so impressionable. Not that,
They're
I
just so
mean,
pretty, Carol. The
I'm
new
just
ones
rock
are pretty.
steady, and you can't convince me to buy a tree that I didn't plan to buy. I'm rock steady.
Or Monarda, but whatever. Okay. So you said if you want to be a little more scientific about companion plants, please check out Jessica Wallacer's book, Plant Partners Science Based Companion Planting Strategies for the Vegetable Gardens. We have an Amazon link.
Yeah, that came out December 2020, still in print. You can get it from bookshop.org. But, I was thinking
Great
about,
plant.
and
Great, really great book.
this is something I thought, you know what, we should do this as a topic. So let's say you're only going to have 5 books about vegetable gardening to help your vegetable garden. What 5 would you choose? And I'm like, well, Plant Partners would be one of those books. Don't
So
come
we'll
up
do
with
that
the
as a
others.
topic. We'll do that as a topic next week.
Good luck stopping at 5.
Yeah. Good luck. Maybe 10. You're only going to have 10. We could do 5 and 5 alternates or 5. What's that word? Like the 5 winners and then the 5, we don't want to call them runners up, but
We'll have
alternate.
they have the short list and the long list.
Yeah, there we go. That'll work. I think
But
we better move on and you do a
yeah,
quote.
since we're talking about books, let's move on to our book topic. One can dream so much better in a room where there are pretty things. And that is Ella Montgomery, Anna Green Gables, one of those books. I love that quote, but that is true. You
It
have
is
pretty things
true.
all over. I have pretty things all
I
over.
love pretty things. Yeah, I do. In fact, around my desk is just full of pretty things. It makes me happy. So, we are going to talk about Your Outdoor Room, How to Design a Garden You Can Live In by Manoj Mal. Is it Malday?
I think it's Manoj Malday. He's of Indian descent, but he's in Great Britain. And this guy was in the fashion industry until about 18 years later. And then he likes to say that he went from haute couture to hort couture. Get it?
That's funny. That's a good one.
So and we're still getting our feet wet on this book, we'll admit that. But when you think about designing a garden, people like us can just get so enthralled with the plants, the plants, the plants. But really, the plants do so much better when they're in an actual garden that's been thought out from a design perspective. And so that's what his book, in my mind, helps you do. And he says it's design a garden that you want to live in. And it's whether you have a small rooftop garden, which we don't have, a large yard, which you have more than a large yard, brand new build, blank canvas. I had that once a long time ago, or some kind of unique space. He explains how to get the most out of the garden for you and your family. Real life, low maintenance spaces and gardens for plants people, whether you want a garden for entertaining, playing, or practicing yoga. Menage, I hope I said that right.
Menage.
Takes you on a step-by-step journey to create your dream space.
Okay, so I barely looked through this last week and now I'm looking through it again. I want to say a couple of things about it. I think all of my clients who do not have professional designed gardens, all of our listeners for that matter, could really benefit from this book, because one of the things I talk a lot, every time I go to garden coach someone, they want to talk about plants. And I'm always like, okay, before we talk about the sexy stuff, plants, which is my favorite stuff too, we have to talk about certain things. And one of those certain things is we've got to talk about soil and water and where are you going to plant these things? And how do you set up the design so that it is pleasing to you and find places to sit? And because this man was a designer already, he's extremely good at what he does. And I think his designs are extraordinary.
Well, and
they're just beautiful.
I watched a YouTube video, and you can tell how he integrates color in the, I'll say, the hardscape of the garden, the furniture and stuff, and integrates that in with the actual garden itself, because you do have to ask yourself, like, do you have a dog that needs to play in this garden? Do you have kids that are going to set up and play baseball in this garden?
Right. That's the fourth thing we talk about, was how are you going to use this space?
Yeah. Do you like to eat outside? And I was listening to, of all things, a book podcast, and this woman said that they had put out like a dining table and chairs in their patio area or under their porch. And she says it never really got used. And they switched out the dining room table and chairs, and they basically brought in an outdoor couch and chairs. And she says people are out there all the time now because it's designed more for what they like to do, which is just lounge in the garden. So you got to think about that stuff.
You do. And I have to laugh because there's a whole section on paths and how to make them more interesting, which I'm always all about too. And guess what he used in his path for a cottage garden?
River rock
with flagstones, which is what mine is. And I'm like, well, I mean, I wouldn't, but I think it is very pretty. It is very pretty, and a lot of people want to do it. I think this is a great book. I'm not picking on him at all. I mean, he win like a silver gilt at Chelsea or something. I mean, he's famous.
Yeah, 2017 he did it, and he won a silver gilt. That was his first Chelsea flower show. So I'm assuming.
Okay, if you go to your first Chelsea show and you win a silver gilt, that's one step underneath gold. I mean, he's darn good at what he does, and he's taken it and he's simplified it in this book. And I just think it's brilliant. And here he used DG for paths. So yes, that's what I would use. People use decomposed granite because it just, unless you're going to weed eat your paths or you want to use bark, but I like decomposed granite personally.
He's also been on some of the television shows, Your Garden Made Perfect, Garden of the Year, Secrets of the Royal Gardens, and is a regular contributor to BBC Radio London's Robert Elms show. I don't know anything about that. But anyway, yes, so that is, we go crazy about all the plants. We just went crazy about all the plants, but good design is important in a garden. Yeah. You should have a couple of books in your library about design, and this is a good one to get. And just came out this spring. I think it was March 21st it came out. And
it just came out. And it's a really good one.
It's the Francis Lincoln imprint of Quarto Group. So they sent us,
which is the English one.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you guys. And they're not, it's really nice. And he also does talk about sustainability and a bunch of other stuff too.
Yeah. And speaking of color, so in papers inside.
Papers. Yeah. They're bright orange.
So yeah.
Which by the way, bright orange as an accent color looks great in a garden. And you and I, did you go with us to Portland when we did the bloggers fling in Portland?
No.
Okay. Well, there's a beautiful garden in Portland she uses orange as her accent color, and she uses dark plants, and it's fabulous. And then that's also where we saw. I want to say it was called Floridora, which was the two guys, and their garden just was dripping with beautiful color. That's one of my favorite gardens of all time. Aren't you
Anyway,
wish you were there with us?
yes, that is Your Outdoor Room, How to Design a Garden You Can Live In by Manoj Malde.
All right, I'm going to do the quote. Without hard work, nothing grows but weeds. Gordon B. Hinckley. Amen.
Amen. You found the dirt. Tell us all about it.
I did find the dirt. It is all about how barn owls, they're now using barn owls to protect crops because as we try to become more sustainable and use fewer pesticides or I don't know, mouse, like killing mice.
Yeah.
They used to just put down pellets to kill mice, but then they realized that the mice were killing the owls. So now, in several places, including, I guess, vineyards attract a lot of mice. Just a
They
thing to
would.
know.
Yeah.
They
Mice,
would, I would think.
voles, all those. Yeah. If you could get an
And
owl
so
to hunt there, good thing.
in California, Oregon, and Washington vineyards, pocket gophers are a huge problem. And so they damage both soil structure and irrigation, and they weaken plants, and they just cause all kinds of problems. And so now they're using barn owls for rodent control, and they've been using them for decades, actually. And so there's a whole thing from the Barn Owl Box Company, which is where you can buy those boxes for your barn owls to house themselves. I have a bunch of owls out here, and we hear them in the mornings and in the middle of the night. And one time one swooped over my head, which was really exciting. So, and I saw a bobcat the other day too, by the way, as an aside. So anyway, Masha is back indoors, by the way. Thank God, because then I saw a bobcat, Carol, and I was like, oh no. So that's really our dirt. And we're going to link to that. And it's just a very interesting article about how you can help barn owls become established even in your residential neighborhoods. Because as people have mature trees and such, you could have owls. I mean, Pam does.
We
Pam
have
from
owls.
Biggie
I hear
and
owls at
Debbie.
night. Yeah. I
Yeah.
hear owls at night all the time. So,
Right
and
now, my owls are scared because the people next door are building their new home. And there's a lot of noise going on over there. So I haven't heard them lately, but they'll be back.
so we should encourage things like owls. And I'm going to read that article and I don't think I'll put an owl box up, but I do hear them. They are lovely.
Yeah. It's just like encouraging bats or other creatures
Right.
that are native to your
Exactly.
area.
I'll do a quote for the rabbit holes. I'm a great believer in luck. I find the harder I work, the more I have of it. And that is Thomas Jefferson. Kind of a
Boy, that's
theme
the
this
truth.
week.
Working hard.
Exactly.
We have been.
Yes, we have.
Okay, so rabbit holes. I'll do mine first because it's not really that big. I have two rabbit holes. I didn't have one before we started, but I came up with two. I did some research on roses and which ones I want to add to my garden. And one of the things I do for research is I text my friend, Teresa Byington,
Yeah.
and I say, Teresa, is this a really good rose? And she either says yay. Mostly she says yay, by the way. Sometimes
Yeah.
she says no, but not very often. She's so nice that she'll say things like, isn't that pretty? Which
And that
means
means don't get that one.
don't get that one, or she wouldn't grow that one. Okay, so I did that. And then the other one is I've been down the Sarah Raven podcast hole.
Oh,
Sarah
gosh.
Raven's podcast is so good because they have all different kinds of people on, and it's just a really good podcast, even though we don't do things exactly like they would. But if I was in Great Britain, I would follow a lot of, they have little snippets of tips that they do as separate little bites between regular podcast episodes. And those tips are really good. But let me point out, Sarah has a huge staff.
Yeah.
Dee and Carol do not.
No, we do not. We don't have any staff, Dee.
But I love that podcast and I love the Rose Chat podcast. So I've been really listening to those. Tell me about yours.
So this was the week to do a Lost Lady of Garden Writing. It was Ida D. Bennett, who's from Michigan. But honestly, I was so busy working in the garden, barely had time to write that. But I pulled this book off the shelf. I don't have any idea where I got it. And I thought, I wonder if this lady's interesting. Holy cow, Dee.
Who is
Holy
it?
cow. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but I'll give you
Oh,
a
okay. This is
hint.
another one. This isn't Ida.
No, I'm done with Ida. She's last week's news. This woman was once married to a baron in
Huh.
Austria, but she qualifies as an American lost lady of garden writing. So I'll let you chew on that.
Interesting. So that's
It
a
is
tease for next week.
it is a tease. And I did write that blog post about the 3 gardeners in my garden, and people did seem to like it. I gotten more comments than many other things. So
Cool.
we'll put a
So
link to
what are
that.
our garden commissions this week?
So I'm going to have everything planted by the end of the week. And then they laughed and laughed and laughed.
I'm like, I'm still not got everything planted, and I've got to go out of town in 2 weeks. So, well, you're also going to do some other stuff because you.
Well, I'm going to weed. I'm going to deadhead. I got to mow. I'm harvesting strawberries, lettuce, peas, potentially goes on. And I'm now looking, I want 2 arbors because the way my vegetable garden, the way my patio is, it's
Mhm.
like, it's a big curve going out to the lawn. In the center, there's a bed that comes out from it, but there's 2 places where you can exit the patio. And I want to put an arbor on each one of those exits to give it more of a feel of a room. But I
Mhm.
want something, I don't want to get wood and have to like make big holes.
You
I
also
want,
don't want to get wood because you have to take care of it all the time.
yeah, I want something metal, but I don't want something like cheap. And so I need to do
How
some
about garden
research.
supply?
Well,
Gardener
maybe
supplies. A lot of their arbors are pretty nice. I have one.
I
What
want
about
our
Ken
garden artesian.
Kinman? Oh, yeah, they're good too. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm just down in a rabbit hole looking at arbors because I want 2 for
That can
sure.
be next week's rabbit hole.
And then that's because I want to put like the major wheeler honeysuckle on one and,
Yeah.
put a vine on it. I just wouldn't leave them bare. But anyway, how about your rabbit or where are we now? I don't even know.
We're at garden commissions.
Okay. All right.
So I'm going to plant up my pot and so I was going to put that sensuous rose in the center of this pot that Megan bought me for Mother's Day, and it'd be so pretty in there. But then Teresa said, Dee, that rose gets quite large. And I was like, dag nabbit. Okay. So I'm actually going to plant that in a border real quick after I get done here, which means, well, I may not do it today because I'm already showered and clean. I
I
already
was going to
got
say,
there.
you can't do anything quick because you got to armor up. You got to
I
the
do.
right clothes, everything. Don't,
I
yeah.
gotta
And then
spray
another
myself. I'll do it
shower.
tomorrow because
Yeah,
I'm gardening all day tomorrow anyway. So I got to plot that up. I got to go water in the greenhouse so I don't kill anything. So here's an intriguing idea. I also need to deadhead everybody. The roses are out of control. They got to be deadheaded. I really need to be Chelsea chopping, but I was listening to the Sarah Raven podcast and this famous garden, and I'll be honest, I was listening on the road, so I know what the garden is, but I can't remember the name of it. But he's the head gardener there. It's the one that has the famous, I think it's a ligularia. So they have this big long arbor with ligularia on top of it, and it hangs down and it blooms yellow, and it's like every Pinterest, you've seen it. It's a famous photo where you can walk underneath it and it just buzzes with bees. It's beautiful. It's
Is it the
that
famous
garden.
garden of Rosemary Veary?
It might be. I have no idea. He didn't mention rosemary, so who knows? But the point is he mentioned that he has quit Chelsea chopping. Your mouth is like hanging open. He quit Chelsea chopping a lot of the stuff because he said, naturally it grows to be the size it is. And he said, and we're trying to reduce some of the work in this giant garden we have. And he said, so we've just been letting stuff prop each other up. And
Yeah.
and the lady interviewing him was a little bit horrified, or maybe it was Alan Titchmark. I think it was Alan. He was a little horrified at this. And he was like, I just decided that we wouldn't Chelsea chop everything. So I'm looking at this aster that might bloom midsummer and then bloom again. Because if I cut it back, it'll bloom again. I don't know. I'm thinking about it. So that's a good question to ask our listeners. Should I Chelsea chop or should I not? All right, your turn.
Exactly. All right. So I think that's
What do you
everything
think?
there.
What do you think?
I have not Chelsea chopped asters before, and they'll grow to be about 5 feet tall, and they'll flop a little bit, and that's the end of the season, and Mama don't care no more. So
Right.
it's a look,
It's different.
I think it's completely optional. I think it's completely optional.
Something to think about. I'm looking at it and maybe, maybe not. And
Hey, Dee,
maybe
I got
I'll
an idea.
what?
Try it this year without Chelsea chopping. And if you don't like it, you got next year.
Yeah. Or I could Chelsea chop some and not others just to see what
Yeah.
happens.
There you go.
Okay.
Now I'm going to wrap us up. Thank you for listening to the Garden Angelos. I hope you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. We publish every week on Wednesdays at 12 a.m. Eastern Time.
If you listen to Apple Podcasts, we'd love a 5-star review that helps us get noticed by others. Could you also share our podcast with your friends? Word of mouth is still the best way to get the word out there.
And be sure and check out our show notes for links for more information about today's topics, plus links to our own websites.
And subscribe to our free Substack newsletter, The Garden Angelus at substack.com, also linked to in our show notes. If you do, you'll get a link to listen to the podcast a day early.
And if you want to help support us, use those affiliate links. If you buy something after clicking through on them, we earn a small commission and it costs you nothing.
Or you can set up a monthly subscription through Buzzsprout, or you can make a one-time donation through PayPal.
Thank you to everyone who has done so. It helps us pay for the podcast hosting.
It was lovely to chat with all of you over the garden gate. Bye until next week.
Bye, everybody.